Okay, now that we've taken a look at the mechanics behind the left and the right hand, you know, how we fret with the left hand and mute and some of those things, how we strum with the right hand, let's start putting some of that into practice. And the first step in learning to play guitar is learning to play some simple open position chords. Now when I say open position, I'm talking about chords that you play down here in the first position where you've got some open strings involved. That's usually your first step in learning to play because they're easier to play. So we're going to start with a G chord. We're going to start learning to play a simple G chord, not a full G chord. A full G chord sounds like this. And notice I'm playing on all 6 strings. But we're going to start with a simple version of that. We're only going to use half of the strings, so the top 3 strings sounds like this. Now that's still considered a G chord. It's just a simple version of it. And it'll make it a little easier for you to switch between chords if you're not trying to, concern yourself with all 6 strings. So let's take a closer look at making the simple G chord. Okay, now before we jump into this, I'm going to assume that you've already watched the video on fretting with the left hand. If you haven't, please do so because I go into detail on how you're supposed to push down on the strings to create the different notes. Alright, so let's get started. With a simple G chord, what we're going to do is we're going to push down on the first string, 3rd fret, with our first finger like this. So I'm just going to push down right here and I'm going to create a simple note. Now when I play just that string, it's going to sound like this. And that's how you want it to sound. You want it to be nice and clean. You want the note to ring out. No buzzing or popping or muting or any of that weird stuff. If it sounds like this, or you're getting some buzzing, you're probably doing one of 2 things wrong. You're either not close enough to the fret, so make sure you slide your finger as close to the fret as possible, or you're not pushing down hard enough. So check one of those 2 things. Now if you're having a hard time pushing down, remember, pay attention to where your thumb is. Your thumb should be pushing too. And just push. It's going to hurt a little bit in the beginning, especially on an acoustic guitar. But that's just kind of part of it. I promise it does get better. So just push a little harder and try and hold that down until you get a nice clean sound. And with that, all you got to do is play the first 3 strings and you've got a G chord. Now here's what's going on with my right hand. So I'm just playing the first 3 strings, pushing down here, and I've actually got a nice, clean, simple G chord. Now let's introduce another chord, another simple chord. Let's introduce the simple C chord, and we'll have 2 chords in our repertoire.